Hey friends, welcome back to another video, and in this one, we're going to be talking about 10 different PS4 fighting games coming right up. First game we're going to be talking about in this video is called Blade Strangers. Story mode has a few settings that can be tweaked to your liking. Difficulty can be adjusted from 1 to 5, as well as the number of rounds you would like to go against your opponent. Even adjusting the round time is an option as well. At the start, you'll have 9 characters to choose from, with 5 others being unlocked through gameplay. All the characters in the game are from other indie games, so this is a great opportunity for you to stumble across another game you might enjoy. One thing about the story mode is that it's a bit bonkers, but it's all good if it's just another mode for a game. In total, there are 17 different characters to select when playing. It's great that they got so many different fighters for this. The arcade mode is where it's just a normal run through the game, challenging other characters. The mission challenges mode is just teaching you how to do different combos with the given character you've got selected. The mission survival mode is just a single round with the given opponent, and your heat that shows up at the bottom of the screen rolls over from one game or one match to the next. The online aspect of the game seems to either be broken or just far out of date. No one's playing it anymore. The leaderboard doesn't even have any information either, so I think it's just kind of broken. One thing that I noticed right away was that the characters looked like their resolution is a little bit off, but they're all animated fairly well. The backgrounds have a great 3D rendered look to them, and the soundtrack also has a good heavy metal rock vibe to it. If you're a fan of a character or two from maybe a different franchise, I would recommend picking this up, and it's a fun kind of crossover game. Next game we're going to talk about is Mortal Kombat XL. When you throw the game in, the story mode isn't available right away, so I dug into the tower mode, and it was fun and challenging. It seems to be just another way to play through the game. Here's your set number of opponents, and you make your way through them, unless you're doing the Eternal Tower, which is just never ends. Once the story mode is ready and you start it, you're treated to some quick time events. After that, the battles begin as you progress through the storyline to save the world, and it auto-progresses through the next storyline, with more fights mixed in throughout. It's a lot more sitting around and enjoying the show with the different quick time events than there is actually fighting, but there's a few fights that do come up here and there. There are 33 characters here to select from. Some of the newcomers are Predator, the Alien, Leatherface, Jason Voorhees, as well as the classics such as Goro, Raiden, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and many more. It's a very full roster. The crypt is where you go to spend your cash on different things. As you wander through, you'll come across tombs that you can purchase with your coins. Each of them has something different: an icon, different outfits, fatalities, concept art, and a few other things. There's a ton of different items to unlock in here. The collection area is where you can go in and see the different fatalities, character artwork, and things like that that you purchased in the game. There is online play here as well, so if you want to play other people all over the world. Overall, the game is fun, and it's bloody and brutal in its violence, but it's a fun game to add to your collection. Get it? Because it's got a game. Next game I want to talk about is called Dragon Ball Xenoverse. And when you first fire up this game, you're treated to a battle with Frieza, Cell, and then Majin Buu. And then the game starts to explain what you're actually doing. Once you get into the game, you actually have to create a character. You select your race, gender, and a few other customizations for a good change of pace. Once you get out of the time cop area, you actually start digging in and fixing broken time streams. After each battle, you'll get some cash and a skill point or two. When you're back in the time village, you'll be able to spend your points and cash on different things, such as new skills, equipment, or items, though not every skill is available for every race. This isn't just a regular fighting game, it's more of an adventure fighting game, I would say. When you level up and you gain more skills versus just walking into a predetermined character that has all their abilities ready to go for you. As you go through the game, you can become an apprentice of somebody and they will teach you their abilities, which is kind of cool. Some of the fights it's going to be 4-on-1. Some of them it's a 3-on-3, and at a certain point, once you've taken out all the enemies, it's just typically a 4-on-1, and then it just goes down very quickly from there. One of the things that I'm not a big fan of here is the hub area. There's no reason to have 3 different zones, and everything is very far laid out from each other. Like, you have to go and do quite a bit of running to get to the skill shop, and then go to the offline quest area, and then maybe go to see Trunks. It should have been more closely put together, in my opinion. The graphics look good, and the characters definitely look very much like their anime counterparts. The concept of being injected into the game as a new character or as one of the regulars is a fun concept. Also, seeing the cartoon little clips in there is a nice touch. If you're into Dragon Ball, I definitely recommend this one. It's a good game. Now we're going to talk about Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. Out of the gate, I went to the museum. I know, I'm a nerd. But to me, it's fun to see the history of the game that started the Versus genre. Seeing the overlap of the Street Fighter and Final Fight franchise is an interesting tidbit of gaming history as well. Toss in all the character bios, and it's a great addition to the collection. 12 games, friends. 12 different Street Fighter games. Now, some of them are, Street Fighter 2 and then Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but it's an easy addition to the collection. And there's a lot to go through here. Each of the games you can dial the difficulty up or down according to your different skill level, or in my case, lack of skill level. I have to admit that the game looks beautiful. Maybe not so much in the stretch mode, but the full mode works for me. At least it fills the screen vertically. The controls on the game are very responsive, and they definitely show my lack of skill. This is one game or set of games that I would definitely recommend getting a fighting stick for. I think it'll just do a little bit better for you. Now we're going to talk about a game called Guilty Gear XRD Revelator. There's a lot of difficulty options to go through here for game and match settings and much more. The text is all in English, but the voiceovers are in Japanese. That being said, you do get more of a story than the typical fighting game, which is a nice change of pace. The game's music has a great sound to it, and the art style of the game definitely has an anime flair to it. It's beautiful playing. Once I finally figured out my character shtick, that I was playing a billiard player, it just made him all that much so the better. When you finish a match, the shots that they do of your character coming in from all the different angles, it's really cool to see that too. When pulling off a super move, the change in perspective is a great thing to just sit back and kind of enjoy. There are 20 different characters here to start with, and there's 5 others that are unlockable. And speaking of unlocking, there's a ton of unlocking to do in this game. Artwork, voices, music, characters, character colors, costumes, there's a ton here. The fighting seems well balanced, and there's combos that'll help build up your score throughout the game. There's also a fishing area where you can get digital figures for a diorama. Doesn't that sound like fun? It's a gorgeous anime style fighting game, and there's a lot to unlock and do here. Now, I'd like to talk about a game called Blazblue Chrono Phantasma EXT. Say that 5 times. This game is definitely another fun anime-style versus game. There are quite a few settings to tweak to your liking here as well, dialing in the difficulty level from 1 to 6, number of rounds, and a lot more. There's also a setting for voiceovers and text on the screen, with English and Japanese being an option. The characters are very unique and varied from each other, some taking up almost a quarter of the screen, while others are small and quick in their attacks. The backgrounds during the gameplay are absolutely beautiful. The background music definitely has a rockin' sound to it. There's a lot of story going on. One of the great things that this game does is it includes more background details about what's going on through a few different options off of the main menu. The cutscenes that come up after a character selected does give a little hint to what's going on. The fighting is a little bit slower than other games regarding pulling off moves and such. The moves are simple enough to pull off, as I didn't see anything that had to be time specific in terms of combos. Something about the game just didn't feel right. I don't think it was the controls, but there was just something else going on that I couldn't put my thumb on. If you got any suggestions or have any ideas as to why, maybe throw them in the comments below. Now let's discuss a game called Granblue Fantasy Versus. The game's anime style and design are great if that's in your wheelhouse, and if it's something you enjoy, like me. Right out of the gate, you have a few different gameplay options here. You have RPG, versus, arcade, missions, and online. Diving into the RPG mode here seems to be a bit more of a brawler with some RPG gear selection. The first few quests are your tutorial and how to play the game, but after that, it does go into more details. There's some finer points here with the different elements going on, as well as supporting skills, which can be used while you're blocking different attacks. Get used to seeing this little black screen with the loading icon pulsating as it hangs around for quite a bit. Alright, now on to the meat and potatoes, the fighting section. At the onset, you've got your choice of 11 different characters, with what looks to be about 7 more unlockable. I just want to add here that the artwork here is beautifully done and has a lot of detail in it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. As you go on to your next opponent, you're picking the skill level each time as well. And the different difficulties are different characters as well. Backgrounds and the visuals for the different levels are absolutely gorgeous. And the 3D effects as you're moving left and right on the screen definitely show. Fighting mechanics are very easy to grasp with simple button combinations and D-pad movements. Though it seems once you get into a corner, the match is pretty much over fairly quickly. There is an online option here to play others as well. Not something I got into too much. Definitely another great fighting game if you're into anime style fighting, which it's a beautiful game. Now I'm going to talk about King of Fighters 14. You've got all your typical options here: language, game difficulty from 1 to 5, number of rounds, round length, and more. The gallery mode fills up as you play through the game with different items and such. Playing the story mode starts you off with quite a selection of characters to pick from. 48 different characters, actually. It's a 3v3 fighting game, and it swaps to the next character when you die. You don't have control over when you can swap them in and out. Each match lets you select the order you want your characters to come out at. So if you know one character doesn't do well against one of your opponents, you can push them to the back of the sequence. There's no world-changing events for this. It's just a tournament for the best fighter. So if you lose, the earth doesn't fall into a terrible evil overlord's hands. Each character's move list is available through the pause menu, which makes for very handy quick reference. Speaking of all the different characters, the design of each of them is very unique. Some are very kick heavy, some are very punch heavy. It's awesome. The character art styling is more realistic than fanciful, but they each have their own special move. Also, the small details like the characters' heads watching their opponent move around is a nice touch. The 3D backgrounds here also have a lot of detail to them as well and render beautifully as you're moving left and right on the 2D playfield. The cutscenes here that they show are a nice little addition as well, and they add a little bit of a storyline. There is an online mode here as well, which is great if that's something you're into. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. It's nothing earth-shattering, it's just a well-rounded fighting game. Next, we're going to talk about Dead or Alive 6. One of the great things about the game is when you first throw it in, it's actually going to offer you the tutorial. So instead of just being an option there, if it's your first time playing the game on the system, it actually presents the option to you asking, do you want to go through the tutorial? Which is great for newer players. Your settings are fairly normal from the main menu, but the difficulty and general round options come up right as you're starting the series of matches. The difficulty options are 1 to 8, and you can actually adjust the health options of your characters, which would make for a much quicker round if dialed down. Once at the character selection screen, you have your choice of 24 unique options to choose from. It also details their strengths and weaknesses in the bottom left-hand corner for newer players who may not know the characters in depth. There's also a lot of customization options to choose from as well regarding outfits and more. This is one of the few three-dimensional playfield games on this list. So whereas other games are only left and right, this one you can actually move towards and away and circle around your opponent. The Versus mode is just a one-off fight against a given opponent. So if you need to practice with a given character against another given character, this is where you want to go. Time attack and survival mode are pretty self-explanatory as well. For the arcade mode, you can only dial in difficulty options from 1 to 5, so that's a change there. Another feature here that's like in so many other games is the command list from the pause menu, which definitely helps out. The graphics of the characters and backgrounds are done well, especially with the destructible items that can be blown through. Not just simple things, but also like areas that you can blast through and fight into. It's a bit heavy-handed with the risque level, but it's Dead or Alive, so it's always kind of been that way. Just be mindful if little Johnny is looking to buy that fighting game. It's fun and it's varied with the levels and characters, as well as the outfits that can be unlocked, which it looks like you get one every time you run through the arcade mode. So there can be a lot of time invested here if you're trying to get everything, but if you enjoy the grind, that may be your thing. Also, don't forget about the story mode, which can be a lot of fun as well. But you know, giving a secret mission to the maid, yeah, okay. Just check your brain at the door and enjoy it. It's heavy on the Asian influences as far as how the characters interact, but it's all good. Mostly it's simple fights and watching some cutscenes. It's a mix of mystical magic, wrestlers, industrial cover-up, ninjas, and friendship. How can you go wrong with all those elements? As you're playing through the scenarios, more chapters and options open up for each character to play through and learn their history. It's good fun and enjoyable. The Dead or Alive quest section is fun as well, tasking you to perform 3 specific criteria, each earning you a star, as well as a costume customization pattern part. Also, spending your coins and patterns on different items such as hair, outfits, sunglasses, that's here too if it's something you're into. As a whole, Dead or Alive, though a little on the risque side, is a very fun fighting game, and I would recommend it. The last game in this video is a fighting game, and it's okay. It's Gundam Versus. Yeah. I'm gonna have to try real hard to be nice in this game. For those that don't know what Gundam is, it's giant mechanized robots with human pilots. Alright, now for the game. It's definitely different. It's a different fighting game from any other fighting game. So I went and did the training missions figuring I missed something. Not really. The controls are fairly simple, and I'm not really sure I would consider this a true versus fighting game, but it's too episodic to consider an action or adventure game, so that's why it's on this list. I would definitely recommend doing the training to know more what you're doing with the buttons and such, doing regular gameplay. I started out with the ultimate battle, and it was okay. I was done in about 20 minutes. So I think the majority of the gameplay can be found in the Trials battle. There's a few different ways to play rather than just going through the ultimate or trial battles. The free battle lets you select your mech and pilot as well as accessories to dive into a regular fight. In addition to this, there's also an online mode to play here as well. I know it's an anime and the game is based on that. However, everything is in Japanese except for the text on the screen, which while you're fighting you can't take time to read. And they keep playing one of 2 different songs over and over. Each battle, it's the same songs. It just gets old really quickly. After you get passed around, you're gonna just strike a pose. It's just how it is. And you're gonna do the same pose over and over. There's a ton of extras here that I'm sure a Gundam fan would be excited over. I'm just not that guy. I just never watched it, so it doesn't really hold a place near and dear to my heart. It's an okay game, but the controls just feel off to me for some reason. If you're a Gundam fan, by all means, I'm sure this might be right up your alley, but that's not me, and if this game was on the shelf, I might pick it up if I didn't have it, but I would not seek this thing out. Alright friends, that's 10 PlayStation 4 versus fighting games. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope there's been a game on here that you haven't seen before, and maybe it's piqued your interest. Other than that, be good to each other. Thanks for watching.